Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm your host, Warren Feldman. This week, Jay Goltz, Jennifer Kerhin, and Liz Picarazzi discuss their efforts to get a better grasp of what drives their profits. They ask how much of their finances they should manage themselves, and how much should they rely on an accountant or a fractional CFO. When does delegation become abdication? Jennifer says she's benefited from hiring a fractional CFO who has taken an active leadership role, including setting up a database that helps Jennifer see in real time whether the fees she's charging cover the labor she's deploying. Whatever she's charging me, says Jennifer of her CFO, it's absolutely worth it. Liz, meanwhile, thinks she should be doing more herself. And Jay says he was paying big bucks for a full-time CFO until late last year. And it was a complete waste of money, he says, which is why he's decided not to replace her. Plus, Liz reveals her secret strategy for marketing directly to municipal government officials, some of whom have started to use the term Citibin generically. And the owners respond to a question from the head of a cost reduction service who wonders why she's struggling so much to get business owners to try her risk-free service. Even in good times, owning and running a business can be a lonely pursuit. Our hope is that these weekly conversations, brought to you by our principal sponsor, The Great Game of Business, will let owners know they are not alone in facing challenges. Same thing with our daily newsletter, the 21 Hats Morning Report, which Inc. magazine named the best newsletter for business owners, and which you can subscribe to for free at 21hats.com, where you can also find transcripts of our podcast episodes and lots of other articles and interviews. Joining me this week on the podcast are regulars Jay Goltz, CEO of the Goltz Group, whose companies in Chicago include a picture frame business, artist frame service, and a home furnishing store, Jason Home. Jennifer Kerhin, who is CEO of SB Expos and Events, an events management business based near Baltimore, Maryland. And Liz Picarazzi, who's CEO of Citibin, which is based in Brooklyn, New York, and makes trash enclosures and package bins. The episode is titled, "We're Making Good Money. I'm Not Sure How." Welcome, Jay, Jennifer, and Liz. It's great to have you here. I asked this with last week's group and got a surprise answer, so I'm going to try again. Did any of you make New Year's resolutions this year? Anybody?
I made goals. Is that the same? Goals rather than resolutions?
It's related.
Yeah. Part of my Vistage group, a couple days ago, we had to present our 4 top business goals and our 4 top personal goals. And you had to do it in front of everybody with slides and accountability. And it was an important part of my late December planning and present it. So yeah.
Can you give us a couple of those goals?
Sure. One is this year's focus is on management. We have hired some amazing people, but I need to develop our inexperienced managers into strong managers. So focus on training and development of management. Second is implement content marketing strategy. We have an entire content marketing strategy this year. My third one is to actually have a good format and be prepared for my monthly meetings with my CFO. I have a fractional CFO, not done a great job. And my final one is I don't remember my final one. Shoot, I have the top 3. And then 3 personal goals. 3. Yeah, 3 personal goals. One is my 30th wedding anniversary is this year. And so we are taking a 2-week vacation to Spain. So to plan that, so we have a lovely time.
That's right up your alley.
Yeah.
Event planning.
Absolutely. And then redecorate my living room, because my living room, I've hated it and ignored it for years. And then my final one is I'm not doing dieting. I hate dieting goals. I hate weight loss as a metric. It's more of be more active. So every day I'm committing to 15 minutes of activity. Whatever it is, treadmill, walking up the stairs, I will commit to 15 minutes every single day. For those people that are athletes, they're probably being disgusted right now at this. But for someone who sits in a chair 12 hours a day, 15 minutes of solid activity is a big step for me.
There's a lot of good stuff in there. I want to come back to some of that, but real quick, Liz, did you set any resolutions this year?
I didn't set any formal resolutions, but I kind of looked at, things that I want to make sure have happen or do. One is I have a 17-year-old who's going to be going to college next year, so I want to just spend as much time as possible with her. Definitely starting to feel worried about that. Another one with work, at least, is to really be looking for people I might want to hire before I do expect growth this year, and I don't feel like I'm in a great place. Like, I want to know who I'm going to hire once I need to. And I feel like it's a pretty vulnerable position that I'm not there yet. And in terms of like personal exercise, I don't. I go on walks every once in a while. So
that's exercise.
I'll go on more walks, but I'm not going to quantify it.
Jay, how about you?
Liz, if I can give you some weight, I have to tell you, as someone who sent 3 kids off to college and remember the moment where they're walking away from the car and you want to vomit and you think, oh my God, did I spend enough time with them, blah, blah, blah. I tell this to everyone that's been through that. You need to smile and remind yourself there's lots of people that wish they were sending their kid off to college, to a college they wanted to go to. And we have to remember that because how fortunate are we and they that the kids grew up and they're okay and they're going to college.
Right. Well, and also I need to not like catastrophize her going to college. It's a natural thing. But, we were on vacation recently as a family and I'm, walking the Great Wall with Frank and Lydia. We're having a great time. And all I have in my head is like, this is the last time I'm going to do something like this with her, which is not true.
Right.
But in the moment when I think, am I ever going to do that with her again? You know what? I could if I make it happen. But I definitely have this worry, like this sort of style of spending time together as a family is going to change.
Stop worrying. That's a New Year's resolution. Stop worrying. Write that one down.
Is that your resolution, Jay?
No, I'm not a big worrier. My New Year's resolution is after 45 years in business, you'd think I figured it all out or maybe most of it, but I've been through a tremendous transformation in the last 30, 60 days that I need to make sure my managers are all getting good numbers so that they can manage the company better, including getting the inventory under control. And I wasn't paying enough attention, if any attention to it. So I've only got that one thing. And if I get that, not if, when I get that going right, everything will be glorious.
We'll look forward to that. There's a lot to talk about there. Jennifer, let's go back. The hiring of a fractional CFO, I think, is a new thing for you, right?
Well, I've had her for years, but to be honest, it wasn't, she was more, not behind the scenes, but she more took her direction from me. And to be honest, I would say up until about June of last year, she played more of a role of like an accounting consultant. She really wasn't what I would call fractional CFO. And last spring, I was talking to her and she said, you know what, Jennifer, your growth is too fast, too much for me to sit back and have you just ask me questions. Because that's really what she was, more like a consultant where she would sit and I would, we'd meet, I don't know, once a quarter, once every 2.5 months. And I'd ask her some questions. She's like, I'm going to take, unless you say no, I'm going to take a firmer role and be the fractional CFO that I'm supposed to be and really be more involved, make decisions. Obviously, you have to approve them, but rather than sitting back and being passive, taking an active role in what this company needs from financial, and I don't mean just reports, but analysis and give me thoughts. And since then, it's been fantastic, the things that she's done. And so understanding, I think, that consultant versus fractional CFO, the differences and how, and I'm so thankful she took that leap to tell me that. And what she's doing now for me in the company is tremendous.
I know exactly what she's talking about. I know what you're talking about. She's talking about putting in a dashboard that you can keep an eye on what's going on. And as the company grows quickly, you're going to have some different financial needs. And it's about monitoring those and then about watching cash flow.
Yes.
If that all makes perfect sense.
It does, Jay. And where the company is now at the size of, she's like, this isn't, it's still a small company, but it's a company that needs to have that analysis, that strategic oversight, that dashboard, like you said, Jay, on the finances. And then she's saying, here it is. Let's look at it. Do you understand this? Watch that. She told me in the September, same thing. Watch your receivables. They're getting too far back. I had $400,000 in receivables. She's like, get on top of this. It's been a transformational time and a good one.
And you're also blazing a new trail. It's not like there's a quote unquote standard in the industry you can follow. And I've been chasing that thing for 30 years because no one ever got to my size. Therefore, I had no metric to look at. Oh, your direct labor should be running X percent. I've had to figure it out on my own, and it's costly to do that. So I think you're in a similar situation that you need to figure out.
Jennifer, how big a fraction is your fractional CFO?
So I would say she's now, I would say 10%. We used to meet, let's say, every quarter, and she would spend a couple hours preparation and we'd talk. But now she's probably working, I don't know, 10 hours a week, maybe less, maybe 8 hours a week.
And has that been a comfortable fit for you in terms of affording what you have to pay her?
Yeah, financially it's fine. And it's not, she doesn't work 8 hours a week. What she does is it's more project based. So she set up this dashboard. One of the things she did in the fall is we created our hours utilization database. She did it. We've tracked hours for years, but I stopped looking at them at 2019 because COVID hit and I just couldn't look. So now she created this database. So at a glance, any manager can go in and they can look at ABC client and they can say, for this year, we scoped 200 hours and we are already at 150. Let's break it down. Where are those hours at? Are we going over hours? Why did we go over hours? Oh, well, we had 2 inexperienced staff on it. Okay, so this other person was training. We have this database that she created with our admin that's fantastic. So one, it's going to have us have management oversight into what's happening in an easy way. 2, did I underscope it? Right? That what we do is, I don't bill by hour, Jay, so I bill by a scope. So, oh my God, did I scope 40 hours and it took us 100 hours, right? Did somebody we put on it a scope creep? Did the client say to them and they just did it and they shouldn't have? I mean, all these things we're doing.
Or this isn't your fault. Maybe you figured it out and you just have a needy client that's calling you too much.
Yes.
I mean, you can't predict that. You paint the house, it costs, you figure out it's going to take, 73 hours to paint a house. You get a needy client, they could be calling you every day about everything, and you can't predict that.
No, but this is giving us management oversight. When we did it in 2019, the CFO had set up a post-event. So let's say the conference was in September. In November, she would say, okay, you had scoped 100 hours, you spent 98, Well, this time it's real time. So to go back, Lauren, to your question, it's not like I'm paying her 8 hours a week. We agreed on this project. She took it on. So she worked really hard for like a month and then she took off for, 3 weeks of the holidays or whatever. But now, and she's introducing it and she's like, all right, she's training my managers. She's taking an active role in leadership so that she can figure out financially how we're making profit, because we don't have a firm handle on how we're making good money, where it's coming from. Which clients, we don't have a good handle on this yet.
No, the key is, this isn't like she's taking, you don't have the background to do that.
No,
I mean,
not at all.
Right, which is why it's so valuable to have someone like this, because she's done this at, hopefully 30 other companies and he has an idea on it.
Well, and this fractional concept is, in the past, she said to me, she goes, Jen, you've been treating me like a consultant that comes in a quarter. She goes, I'm a fractional CFO. I should be ingrained. So we got her into all of our systems. She's now on Slack. She now sees our files. She's like, I can help you make high-level business decisions that you were just feeding me information. She goes, and now I have her talking to my leaders. And she did a presentation in August to my senior leaders. She's becoming an important aspect of the company just on a fractional basis because I couldn't afford her. My company's too small to afford her full-time, nor does she want a full-time job. But now I'm not treating her as like, hey, a couple hours a month. She's an important aspect on a part-time basis for the company's leadership.
And does she work for a firm or is she on her own?
It's her firm, and she has 3 accountants that work for her who do like reconciliation and stuff, and then she's the CFO, fractional CFO.
And I looked into that just a month or 2 ago, and my accountant goes, oh, maybe you should hire one. And it was like $300 an hour, which doesn't take long before, in my size, that I might as well just have a full-time employee. Can you tell us what does that cost?
So let me pull it up. So a lot of the stuff that's like reports and stuff, she goes to I say accountants, but they're bookkeepers. She puts it to the much lower rate of the bookkeeper. But let me pull up I'll pull up her bill and tell you exactly how much I pay. I don't really remember off the top of my head, but it's been worth it. Whatever she's charging me, it's absolutely worth it.
While you're looking, let's just set a baseline. If you were to hire a full-time CFO, it's a company your size, maybe that's $150,000 divided by 2,000 hours. So a full-time person would cost you $75 an hour.
All right.
So I would expect to pay
Although
more.
A company of Jennifer's size normally doesn't hire a CFO, right?
No, for sure. I'm just saying, just to use it as a baseline, it's obviously going to cost more per hour. But if, for instance, if she was hiring her for 20 hours a week, she'd be better off just going to hire a full-time person. But she doesn't need someone 20 hours a week. So
Well, and I think a CFO would be a lot more than 150 per year. I would guess it would be up there more like 200 to 225.
If you're not borrowing a lot of money, I don't know that's because that is the world I'm in. If you're not borrowing a lot of money and there's not a lot of insurance stuff to oversee, I don't know that you're right. It certainly is in that range. But
Jay, you told us you parted ways with your CFO. You were paying your CFO good money, weren't you?
And it was a complete waste of money.
Wow.
As it turns out. Yeah. Wow was right. I have now, believe it or not.
Well, you told us you felt you hired the wrong person. It wasn't a good fit.
I did.
And she thought so too.
Yes. And the fact of the matter is, I'm not replacing her.
It's $190 an hour. And then her assistants charged me $85 an hour.
You know what? That seems very reasonable.
And I'm telling you, the transformation, I've always valued her advice for years, but what she has done since June to become ingrained in the company for the amount of hours. So for the past month, she spent, in December, she spent 10 hours and her assistant spent, or bookkeeper spent 6. So I spent 16. It's worth every single penny.
I probably shouldn't admit this, but I'm not familiar with the term utilization database. Oh. It sounds like something that's transforming for you, Jennifer. Is it just me? Do lots of businesses have utilization databases? Anybody?
I took this term from a branding agency who's part of my Vistage group. She has, and so I don't know if it's out there, Lauren. I just stole the term from her. It was utilization rate. So they say a standard employee should be working about 85% of the time on clients, so the other 15%. And so I'm trying to figure out how much are my employees working on clients, how much they're training, right? And that hours database that the CFO did, so I can have insight into scope and pricing for clients, but then also staffing spending. I mean, did I hire a new person and they're spending all this time on a client and then half their time they're spending on training because they don't know what they're doing? So I don't even know if this is a business term. I just stole it from somebody else in my Vistage group.
It's funny you say that number because I just went through an analysis of my direct labor and I do classes at the Frame Show. So I help people with their pricing. So I did this partially to be able to tell them. And the fact is, between vacation time, holiday pay, sick days, that's 10% right there.
Yes.
And then I took another 8 off just for breaks and meetings.
Yep.
So it's funny, my number, and I came up with it myself, was I've got about an 82%.
Yep.
I'm arguing that you're getting 82% out of every dollar. So yours is right in line with mine. So I do think that's the yield is clearly not 100%. I mean,
no, not at all. It can't be. There's no way it could be, right?
No.
But understanding that too when you're pricing. Look, you're not. You have employees. These aren't contractors, like you said earlier, that you're just marking up. Every dollar is not billed to the client.
Jennifer, it's not that you bought a piece of software called the utilization database and started filling it up. It's that she is now keeping track. I guess your employees all fill out some kind of form that indicates how they're spending their time, and then she compiles it and analyzes it.
Yeah, so my employees put their hours into ADP. And they assign it by client and by year, and then by department. So if you work in the sales department, you worked on the client for 2024. And then if you're in the operations department, your department's operations and the client the year. And so she made a pivot table. It's not like a Access database. It's a pivot table in Excel. She downloads the data from ADP, and she made this incredible interface. So quickly, within 2 buttons, I can see on a client how many hours have they spent that month? Who worked on? I mean, it's just fantastic.
So when you quote a client a price, do you put some parameters? Do you say to them, okay, we're figuring this is based upon giving you 300 hours a year? I mean, so that you can call them later and go, listen, you've used up all your retainer or whatever, or is it open-ended?
It's not hours. We do it by tasks. So we have, let's say for trade show operations, there's probably 20 different tasks. And we'll say, okay, this task, we're going to do these 4 bullet points for this to accomplish this outcome. We expect it'll take 50 hours. I don't go back and say you're at 52 hours, but I say, look, you're asking us to do something outside of scope. We're not going to do it. Or, hey, what you're asking for is so far past what we thought. It's a little loosey-goosey, too much so, Jay. But what we do, there is a large component of independent meeting planners that just charge by hour. And what I say is you're getting a company with a lot of backup with different people and skill sets, and we're going to do it by scope. I don't know if it's the right way.
I mean, my only question is if they turn out to be somebody who's just using way too much time, I mean, how do you address that? This is taking more time than I'm trying to
We send change orders. We do send a lot of change orders.
Oh, good.
Liz, I'm curious, have you, I guess 2 questions. One, have you hired fractionally at Citibin at all? And 2, have you done this kind of analysis of your finances and your work that Jennifer's describing?
So in 2024, definitely everything with financial literacy and being on top of things is a huge priority for me and Frank. Both of us are really behind on where we need to be, and that ended up coming into focus at the end of last year because...
If I can interrupt, Frank being your husband and COO,
yes,
correct?
Frank is my husband and CEO, and he's a little bit more financially illiterate than me.
But he's not a fractional husband or...
Well, Jay, you never know. That's my private life, so... So we definitely need someone like that. As I listen to Jennifer, I think that this is something we can look for. I have a lot of other business owner friends that have fractional CFOs. So I think if I put it out to like my EO group, I could get some recommendations. I think that I also would be looking for someone that would have an eye on valuation. I think I've mentioned I don't plan on selling anytime soon, but from now on, I want to know my value and I want to just have regular valuations done. So if I can find someone that kind of has an eye on that and also has connections in those communities.
I think that might be 2 different people, Liz.
Yeah, I thought it might be. I did hear that one person I know has that person that does both. But what's your perspective on it?
So I wanted to do a valuation, and I talked about it with my fractional CFO, and she's like, that is a very special niche thing because takes into account so many factors. She goes, I'm looking at actual numbers and giving you analysis and how to build for the future. The valuation, it's like art and science. So she pointed me in the direction of other people to do it. I think it would be hard to have both.
I think the problem is those people, it's like having a dog watch your butcher shop. I don't think you're going to have one of those people come in and not start salivating out, ooh, I think I could find you a buyer. And then they do the math in their head. They're going to get a $300,000 commission. I don't think they can stop themselves. So,
Liz, were you thinking that the fractional CFO would actually do the valuation his or herself? Or were you thinking that that would be the person that would lead the project and find the right person
More like lead the project.
Right.
What do these finances need to look like to be ready to get a valuation?
Oh, I think they could do that actually then, Liz. I thought you were saying do the valuation. I misunderstood. I think they could do that.
Yeah, I think so. And, one thing, if I look back on this past year, while I don't have, these great financial skills and we don't have a fractional CFO, there were some huge expenses mid-year that we really realized that were there. One of them was warehousing. One of them was labor, which relates to Jennifer. And we made pretty immediate changes on both. And that saved us a ton of money. Like, if that's the sort of thing that a fractional CFO would do, I don't know if I'd want to pay for that. Because that's really us being like, where is all this money going? And let's look deeper into the financials. And like, with us, at least, we were kind of benchmarking our installers against what installers did a couple of years ago, like their speed, and realized that we were paying 2.5 times what we used to pay for the same work. And that was kind of due to a sort of cultural shift that I think that happened, a little bit of management thing. But, if we can be smarter, I probably would want to do that before I hired a fractional CFO.
You just hit on the heart of what my situation is. I delegated it all away and I shouldn't have. It was my job. I should have been looking at pricing for the last 20 years. And I just had the same person here who was doing a good job for 20 some years, and I just gave it up. And a lot of what you're talking about is the job of the CEO, I believe. That's what our job is. We can't go hire someone from the outside and have them start. They certainly can help get us some numbers, but part of this is what the CEO is supposed to be doing, figuring out, what to charge and costs. And the one number you're missing in between the valuation and just doing the accounting, what I've learned is in the beginning it's growth, then you figure it's profits, then you figure out its cash flow. Ultimately, return on investment, everybody should know, and I didn't do it myself, what your ROI is. And the fact is, I have way too much inventory, and as a result, my return on investment's not great, and I'm going to fix it this year. And if your return on investments is good, then your valuation's going to be good. And most people that own businesses, their return on investment should be 20 to 30 to 40%. It certainly shouldn't be 14%. It doesn't make any sense to run a business and have a 12, 14% return on investment with all the grief that we put up with. You're better off.
Jay, I'm going to push back, though, Jay, a little bit on you.
Go ahead.
I think the CEO's job is setting the vision and the strategy. When you're a small business person, you're doing everything, right? That's the obvious name that Lauren came up with, the 21 hats, and the concept of taking them off. But I don't think if you look at Fortune 100 companies, I don't think those CEOs are setting prices.
No, those people have CFOs that are making $3 million
that's what
a year.
I'm saying.
But Jay, you're at a different stage, Jay. Your company is much more mature than Jennifer's or Liz's.
No, but I'm saying to Jay, earlier you said you didn't have your eye on it. I think the difference is delegating versus abdicating. If I'm hearing correctly, you didn't delegate, you abdicated.
Absolutely.
And so for a
absolutely.
CFO,
That's what I'm saying.
Should be able to, a fractional or a regular CFO should help you. And then you just need to have your eyes on it.
Or be involved with it, for sure. I'm not suggesting you should be doing all the CFO work. I'm just suggesting I was not involved. All it would have taken is a few hours, an hour a month. I could have should have had regular meetings, going over the numbers, seeing where the margins are slipping, and I didn't. I absolutely abdicated. That's what I do. I mean, that's partly how I ended up with this size business, because I'm the opposite of the control freak, not to a bad degree. I've gone too far to the other side. A control freak will never grow it because they can't let it go. I've completely let it go, but I'm paying the price for it now a little bit, so I'm taking a little bit back.
My big theme this year is about management, and I said in some areas I have abdicated oversight, and that wasn't good. I sort of trusted them to set up structure, and what I realized is the managers I hired are really good technical experts, but they don't know how to set up the structure of a new service. They don't know how to do this, and I abdicated my role to them, and I shouldn't have. So I'm in the same boat, Jay, on a smaller scale. And I told them, I'm taking the reins back of oversight and helping you set up structure. Your job is going to be managing the day-to-day, and I need to get you training to help so that in 2 years, you can manage for tomorrow and set up structure and things like that. But I've abdicated a lot, too.
So, Liz, hearing all this, do you still feel as though you should be the one to dig in and figure out what was happening with those cost issues as opposed to getting a fractional CFO to help you with it?
So I think that I do need to get more involved, partly because of some of the confusion with our finances at the end of last year. And they were actually positive changes, but were some that we found unexpected. But it's interesting, about 30 seconds before you just asked me that question, I put on my to-do list, research finding a fractional CFO. So even though you guys have said, there are some downsides to it, I think it would be at least good to inquire. This is the sort of thing I probably would be very thorough about, because if I hired someone and they didn't do a good job, which I have kind of a history of doing, I'm going to be really pissed.
Start slow, Liz. I started 6 years ago meeting quarterly for like 2 hours. That's all I did is I said, what about this? I was more like an advisor consultant that I ran ideas off of who understood finances. So I started really slow, very slow. And then she's only taken an active role 6 months ago. I think a fractional CFO can mean it's a 2% fraction or it's a 98, right? Like I think you can decide how much and go slow.
Well, just to be clear, it'll never be more than 40%, because at that point, you're better off just hiring a person full time to be cheaper. There is a point to where the math doesn't work.
Yes.
But I would say this for sure. This is why we do 21 hats. One of the great fallacies of business is, you start a business and you're good at whatever you're doing, and hire a good CPA firm. Many, whatever number you want to use, they do tax returns. I got a 45-year history of dealing with 3 or 4 different accounting firms over the year, and some of them are big time, paying big money. I can't tell you that they came into my business and said, hey, Jay, wait, you better pay more attention to this. They haven't done anything through the tax returns. So there is a difference between a fractional CFO and hiring your accounting firm. They're not the same thing. They could be the same thing.
Absolutely agree. I went to my CPA a couple years ago, my previous CPA, And this was before COVID, I think in 2019. And I said, hey, it says on your website that you offer business strategy and fractional CFO stuff. Can you help me? And I met with her once. It was a disaster. She's looking at it from accounting and tax issues, not from business strategy. And I heard a term recently that talked about financial accounting versus management accounting. And the financial accounting is what she was doing in terms of making sure your books are good according to the government, compliance, and tax. What my CFO helps me a lot with is the accounting, so it helps you make management decisions.
Completely different.
So, yeah, completely different. And so the CPA was not a good fit for me at all. I think I agree with you, Jay. Totally different fractional CFO versus CPA.
I paid a lot of money to learn that lesson. I was doubling in size for several years in a row. I was completely out of control. I hired my accounting firm to do a management audit, $12,000. Back in the day, everything was $12,000. So they send a 23-year-old in to go do a little analysis. They give me the report and they tell me your receivables are out of control. Now, keep in mind, I'm mostly retail, so I didn't have that many receivables. I go, really? And I'm embarrassed to say this, that I didn't know this. So I said to him, well, how many receivables do I have? And he said, quote unquote, that's beyond the scope of this audit. $12,000. And they couldn't, and they made the statement, your receivables are out of control. But it was being outrageous for me to ask, really? How many received? Couldn't tell the answer. I didn't pay the bill. They wiped the bill, and I changed the accounting firm. It sounds crazy, but this is still going on out there. Just because they say they do advisory doesn't mean they do advisory. So, be warned. You got to check them out, as you did with the woman you had the meeting with. Some of them are helpful and some aren't.
Jennifer, I think when you told us your goals early on, was one of them about marketing?
It was. We have for years just relied, like a lot of small businesses, on word of mouth. And last year, one of my big goals was to get a brand new website. And this year, it's on content marketing. So we've always had, references. And we've done a really poor job of turning those into case studies. And we've never had videos. And we've done, I would say, a C+ job on LinkedIn for putting some information. So we've hired a firm to I came up with a strategy. They're executing it, of a content marketing strategy between blog posts, LinkedIn, 8 videos, case studies, and an ebook. So we have a pretty aggressive content marketing plan this year, and I'm pretty excited about it.
How did you come up with the strategy?
I have a very niche market of working with associations, trade or professional ones. So I don't need a broad audience. So I don't need the type of marketing that does leads or e-blasts. What I need is to showcase our incredible work in very specific storytelling and get that out there in front of them. And we've not done a great job on it on a larger scale. And as you grow in a business, you have to feed the beast, right? So when you're smaller, the word of mouth marketing is okay. But as you get bigger, you're like, I got a lot of salaries on my payroll now to constantly keep up with it. So our best marketing is when we tell the story of how we solved the problems or we executed incredible convention management for our clients. So I knew that, but it worked on small scale before. It's not going to work on that. So we're doing a big push, pretty significant dollars for this year.
And you're spending those dollars with a firm that will actually produce the content, the videos, the blogs?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Can you give us a hint how much that costs?
Sure. I'm spending $58,000. And I speak a lot. I'm speaking in 2 weeks at a meeting in Fort Lauderdale. They've had me on a panel with a closing keynote. And I've never tied that in with a case study and then communicated that, right? So one of the things we're going to talk about is the monetization of hybrid conventions. And they're creating a case study. Right now, they're writing it. I've given them sort of the hook, but they're writing it. They're getting the quote from the client. They're going to put in a photograph. We'll have a blog post on LinkedIn the day before, like, hey, Jen's speaking, blah, blah, blah. And afterwards, I'm like, go hear this case study, more about what I spoke. We've never done that. We've never tied in that type of content across different communication platforms. I'm not a B2C and I'm not a B2B that has a lot. I have a very small market. So my potential clients, they'll when they see this, it's gonna well, I hope it resonates. I don't know.
I think the key to the 58,000, which sounds like a lot, is that's not really for the year. I mean, you can get life out of that for 2-3 years, probably.
Absolutely.
So it's really, when you think about it, it's $20,000 a year for 3 years, which.
Well, and they're creating 8 videos.
Oh, all right. Yeah, no.
And
Yeah,
an
that's
ebook.
pretty good.
Right. So 8 videos. We're creating a corporate video and 8 videos of each of our services. So there's a minute video and then 8 15 to 30 second videos of our services. Then there's an ebook and the case studies, and there's a lot to it.
Liz, are you doing anything differently this year in marketing?
So a couple of things that I'm going to do a little bit differently. So our focus in terms of targets has been kind of all over the map, but it became very clear last year that our biggest growth area is going to be in municipal and with government. And so I'm going to be focusing a lot more on that, and we're going to put residential kind of in the back seat. We are in a good position to be able to do that because we have pretty strong brand recognition, especially in New York City. So with residential, when people are walking through neighborhoods and they see a nice trash container and they see the branding plate Citibin on that, that's my best advertising. And we're all over New York City, so people see the brand all over. They see our trucks. I would say it's passive marketing. And luckily, we're able to have that. I mean, I don't want to call it residual income, but there is some part where it's not as much effort to get that revenue. And then with regard to municipal, it's about scaling what we've learned to work well. So, since launching in New York City, now we're in about 10 other cities. Most of those other cities are pilots that could roll out. And so we're working really hard on making those successful. But the sort of playbook we have for getting into a city and everything from, direct mail, email, phone calls, social media, and even trade shows, that is a playbook that we kind of developed starting in New York. And one thing they always say about New York, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere.
I've heard that.
Well, the sanitation situation in New York, I think, is definitely the most complicated in the whole country and the most bureaucratic. And that means that the other cities that we've worked with have felt a lot easier. They moved faster. There were less bureaucracy. So that kind of ties into also okay, New York is where we got our start. But if we focus too much on getting restaurants the ability to put trash enclosures in the street, which was my obsession over the summer, I'm not going to spend a second on that anymore because it's completely up to city on how they want to handle the trash in restaurants. And if, restaurants need trash enclosures, I'm here, but I'm not actively going to try to fight with the city on behalf of restaurants, which is one of the things I was doing before.
Liz, so your focus now is B2G, right? On the government.
Yeah, I would say B2G, then B2B, and then B2C, the lowest. The B2B, we still have great potential, especially with property managers and with architects, especially as we go more nationwide. In Aspen, a lot of our connections are more of a B2B.
Do you have case studies?
So it's funny you say case studies because we have a ton of before and after kind of little stories.
Okay.
But what I do is so visual that the more text I have, the less people are going to look at the trash transformations where we can show trash on a street corner that completely goes away a minute a Citibin is there. With then, a public official saying how much it's benefited, the beautification of, his neighborhood. Even a couple weeks ago, we did a great installation in Brooklyn Heights in Brooklyn. And the local council member came out and praised the bins. And he used the word Citibin instead of the term trash enclosure.
Wow.
Which is very similar to Kleenex,
Sure.
Kleenex.
Yes.
So, and it's happened a couple of times. There was another one. It was at a very well-attended press conference, and the politician said the word Citibin repeatedly, which I was over the moon about. And then a couple weeks later, I heard from one of my contacts within government that one of my competitors had called and officially complained about these politicians saying the word Citibin.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, would you do a case study with a picture and then that quote, then that little quote from the politician?
We already do that.
Oh, see, so you do them. They're just not long written ones. Got it.
How do you market B2G? How do you reach a government official?
All right, I'm glad you asked this question. It's part of my secret sauce, but I'm going to reveal it anyways.
Thank you.
I have someone that works full time just hand creating lists. He's a fractional assistant. He's a virtual assistant, and he does other things. But all of the government lists that we have were hand created by him. And so some of the great success we've had with our direct mail and with our email is because I'm not purchasing a list like I've done in the past. I mean, I've been in business for 12 years. I've purchased thousands of dollars in lists that never yielded a thing, but he manually goes and he creates them. And he's done it for a bunch of other segments as well. So, that's in terms of targeting, that's been incredibly effective. And that's one of the things that we're going to continue doing. If we have a new segment that we want to get into, we hand build those lists. But then in terms of the direct mail, we have some really great, I call it like a booklet. It's a 12-page booklet. It's square. And all it has is pictures of our trash enclosures in various cities and just little small quotes. So not like a testimonial or a case study, but this is just short and sweet. We mail that out, and that gives government people a potential answer to the difficulties that they're having with trash, recycling, rats. You have it. So that's kind of how we target. And it's not just in the obvious departments like sanitation. It's also in parks, libraries, other places where they're dealing with trash, and we know that they probably have budget to take care of the trash problem.
Liz, how are trade shows for you for the B2G market?
They're really good. And I have to say the IDA one that I went to in Chicago in October was amazing. And we definitely got a very positive ROI on that, including in the city of Chicago. So while we were there, we did an estimate visit, and then we were able to sell some to them. But yeah, there's a bunch of trade shows that are in that space. I think there's also some that are generally for facilities management, or they're sometimes called public works departments. There's procurement officers that are looking for great solutions. And, we usually target them first by email, but we look at things like, are they opening it or not? So God forbid, Citibin sends you an email and you open it 57 times. I'm going to see that.
We're almost out of time. Before we go, I want to real quick deal with a letter I got from a business owner. This is a business owner who's trying to sell something, a service, to other business owners and not having success with it and trying to figure out why. I'll read the letter real quick. I own a Schooley Mitchell franchise. We help businesses reduce their expenses in 15 categories. We negotiate with vendors, check for errors, and basically become an outsourced procurement team. Our average savings is about 30%. We don't charge anything up front. It takes 30 to 45 minutes call meeting to see if it makes sense for each business. If it does, we then sign an agreement, and we do this for 3 or 4 years and share in the savings. All the clients that sign up and find savings are very happy, but it is so hard to get people to take the 30 to 45 minutes to see if it makes sense, even though there is no cost and no risk. Anybody have any suggestions? 1, why aren't business owners interested? And 2, how should this person go about marketing to business owners?
This one's too easy. She doesn't understand what entrepreneurs deal with. Every single day, I get emails about how they're going to make me more money and they're going to save me money and they're blah, 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 blah. And the question is it believable? So my first question is, does it really take 40 minutes to find out whether this is a good match? It seems to me 5 minutes should do it. Do you do a lot of shipping? Do you it shouldn't take, because you see 40 minutes. Who wants to sit down and have a meeting for 40 minutes? That's 1. 2, it would be very helpful to say, we have the advantage of seeing what thousands of companies are buying. We can use economies of scale and we can help you find the lowest price. That makes perfect sense, but they don't say that. And the website you go to is a cartoon that's insulting.
One thing I would tell this person is, when I'm thinking about costs, I mean, I agree with Jay, 40 minutes is a long time of my time, but also the cost of something is not the only thing I have to consider. It's training staff on a whole new workflow and process. And I'll give you an example. We use Salesforce. I know there's other CRMs that are a lot cheaper than Salesforce, but the amount of time to train my staff on something new and to move them over, that whole workflow, that's considerable. And so I think sometimes when you think about procurement, it's not just the cost of the item or the service, it's the cost of getting your company to do that. And that's pretty significant.
Yeah. Well, I've got some thoughts too. If I had a business where I was saving people significant money, that's all I would talk about. That's all. Or I'd have my customers talk about it. That is a quantifiable benefit that people that don't have an easily quantifiable business can say. So I don't know how long they've been in business, but if let's say they've only been in business for 2 to 5 years, if you work on this full time, you probably have dozens or hundreds of clients that you've saved millions of dollars. That's all you need to say. Don't tell me that I can, have a 30 to 45 minute meeting with you. That's not going to make me meet with you. Saving me $1 million or $10,000, whatever it may be, that will make me meet with them. And also sending, me to a website that isn't that effective for a 1-minute video, that's not motivating. It's very simple. I mean, they've got the ultimate customer type of testimonial because it's a hard number.
Oh, yeah. Testimonial. You're right, Liz. Like a case study. If they sent me, hey, Jen, someone in your industry saved $42,000 a year by doing X. Do you have 10 minutes to talk about it? That would grab my attention.
It certainly should not take more than 10 minutes. Really. This just isn't brain surgery. To tell someone up front, I want 40 minutes of your time is like, talk about a turnoff. And the fact of the matter is, it makes sense what they're doing.
Have any of you tried a service like this?
No.
I had someone come out, somebody I went to high school with actually came out here and he bid it. And I don't know what, it never went anywhere. But I got to tell you, after thinking about it, I use a ton of shipping. I mean, I spend $600,000-$700,000 a year on shipping. Between that, do they do things like the charge card interchange thing? Like, I always wonder. I spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year with the Visa MasterCard expense. I always wonder, do I have the best place for that? If they did that stuff, I'm probably a prime candidate for that.
So, Jay, if they sent you an email that said, we worked with a furniture retailer in San Francisco, and we were able to save them, $100,000 on shipping, can I have 10 minutes of your time to talk how we might be able to help you? Would that be of interest?
Yes, but let me tell you the fun part, because I get these emails every day. That's not what they do. You know what they say? They go, we worked with IBM, Apple, and it's like, really?
Irrelevant.
Right.
Irrelevant.
And I say to myself, is no one thinking there? Like, do they think a small business owner is going to go, oh, well, if they're working with Apple, that's who I want to be working with? I mean, no, you hit it on the head. We worked with a small furniture manufacturer.
I think a Schooley Mitchell franchisee just got some very valuable information from a very good focus group. My thanks to Jay Goltz, Jennifer Kerhin, Liz Picarazzi, and to our sponsor, The Great Game of Business, which helps businesses use an open book management system to build healthier companies. You can learn more at greatgame.com. Thanks, everybody. Wait, don't leave yet. If you have a question or a comment that you'd like the 21 Hats owners to address, send it to me by replying to your morning report or by email at lauren@21hats.com. That's LOREN@21hats.com. Do it now before you forget. And don't be afraid to tell Jay what you really think. He can take it. And if you got something out of this conversation, help us reach more business owners. Tell a friend. Subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to The Morning Report at 21hats.com. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Okay, now you can leave. Thanks for listening, everyone.